What's up, Zoomers? So, I have something very urgent to talk to you about. And that is, a lot of people have this idea that computers, they're just gonna get faster and faster and better, and everything's gonna be way sleeker in the future. It's gonna be Whig history. Whig history's happening. Computers are gonna get faster and better and stronger and all that kind of stuff. This video, I want to talk about the fact that I don't really think that's going to happen, and I think that you don't really think that's going to happen, and I'm going to talk about why. And I also want to give an embarrassing anecdote that involves someone else. I'm sharing it with permission because it is, like, I consider it very embarrassing, but it's a good example. So I'll just put it this way. You've probably heard of Moore's Law. If you know stuff about technology, Moore's Law is the idea that, or it's really the realization that, for long periods of history now that we've been making computers, the number of transistors that you can fit on any particular area of space is going to double about every 2 years. That's just something that's happened. And you would usually what that would transfer into is the idea that computers are going to get exponentially faster. Computers are twice as fast now as they were 2 years ago. They're 4 times as fast as they were 4 years ago, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's not that simple, but you know what I mean. That's the idea. So that's more or less Moore's Law. Now, I want you to think about, before you even think about the flaws in an idea like that, or I guess the asterisks to a statement like that, does the internet, ignoring bandwidth, but thinking about internet applications, are they twice as fast as they were 2 years ago? Are your desktop applications twice as fast as they were 2 years ago? Are your video games twice as fast as they were 2 years ago? My answer to those would probably be no. I don't think anyone feels like things are faster. And in fact, since I'm a boomer who's been using computers my whole life, I sort of feel like computers haven't really gotten that more fast at all, frankly. I mean, they're a little faster. The internet bandwidth is definitely faster, but in terms of actually processing things or getting things done, it doesn't actually seem like anything's much faster. Now, that I think happens for a reason. Now, of course, you can tell me, of course, in terms of processing power, yes, computers are actually getting faster, but let me put it this way. At the same time that Moore's Law is occurring and our processing power is increasing, the programs that are written for computers have to care less and less about efficiency. So what ends up happening is that programs are often written incredibly inefficient. Web apps nowadays, which used to not even exist because, it was such an extremely intensive thing to do all this stuff in the browser. But web applications, all this junk that's written in JavaScript, they even have JavaScript desktop applications. This stuff is either using abstract languages or it's just inefficient code. And when you take a computer science class nowadays, writing efficient code as it is processed by the computer is not a big concern, okay? And I have talked about this in videos before, and people will tell, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's actually efficient code. I mean, you just got to get stuff done. That's the mentality that a lot of people have. Now, of course, in real life, when everyone who's writing code for your computer has that mentality, that is going to, that's going to snowball into having a computer that's basically as fast as computers were 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something like that. So you're doing basic stuff, because we no longer have the constraints of processing power. A lot of times that means that you can now write code extremely inefficiently without actually having to, pick up your trash, so to speak. And that's not a big problem. So let me give you, I know I mentioned that I was going to give a specific embarrassing anecdote, and I think this illustrates the problem. I was talking to someone who was sort of writing something for himself. It's not really important what it is. But one of the things he needed, I noted that, so for this little module, you need to take that file and number all the lines, okay? So let's say it's 100 lined file. Every line should have its line number on the side. Now, I didn't tell him how to do that because I thought it was obvious, but how he did it is he wrote a Python script that looped through the file and, numbered all of the line and incremented a variable and all that kind of stuff in the way that you would do in a Computer Science 101 course. Now, the reason I didn't tell him how to do that is because I thought it was a little obvious, because there is a built-in Unix utility called NL, number line, I guess, that you could just run on a file or standard input or something like that, and it will automatically number all the lines. That's all you have to do. I just assumed that, I guess he knew about that. But he wrote yet another program, or just a little script, but it was bigger than it should have been anyway. He wrote this other script to go on top of all that stuff that's already on the system in a more in a totally different language, Python, that loops through and does things in this case that weren't necessarily efficient. He is replicating a behavior of a built-in utility that he doesn't even have to do. Now, I could call him stupid for doing this, and of course I did because he's my friend, but this is something that happens all the time. Specifically, I mean, actually to talk about Unix utilities, there are so many that do basic things that people try and reproduce. Like I was talking to someone who wanted to, I need to learn to wrap my lines, so I'm going to write a Perl script to do all this. No, there are Unix utilities that literally wrap lines for you. You don't have to worry about that. Now, I say this because one of the reasons what's happening nowadays is one of the reasons that computer programs are so inefficiently written is a lot of people writing these programs aren't familiar with the things that are already on their system that do these things that they already know. You don't need to have this, a Python script loop through a file and replace instances of words when you could just use a sed script, and it pretty much always is going to do it way faster. So it's not, this is, I guess, the problem, as we are writing more and more bloated programs, there are more and more superstrates separating what we're doing from our actual systems. And now people will be programmers, and their knowledge of programming is basically limited to the JavaScript implementation that they live in and nothing else. And this is the weird thing. So they end up reproducing things that already exist on their system that they could easily use. So anyway, so that's what I wanted to say. As it comes to, again, the Whig history aspect of Moore's Law, I don't think that computers realistically are going to get faster and faster. I think that the stupidity at which people are writing computer programs is going to increase exponentially as well. I think that's pretty much, it's almost inevitable, unless people that's a spider web. Unless people just arbitrarily, or not arbitrarily, but constrain themselves rigorously to, writing efficient code or something like that. I think it's realistic to expect there to be no big speed increases in computers. And more than that, the number of people, one aspect of my channel, and I don't necessarily think it's bad, but, it's funny that a lot of times I'll use these basic utilities to do basic things, and people who are professional programmers nowadays just don't know about them. It's so weird to me. I mean, I'm just a guy who does stuff on the command line to get things done efficiently, and there are people who get paid six figures who don't know, who think I'm showing them some kind of arcane knowledge. And I don't want to be snobby with it. In fact, I want to be the opposite. I want this to be common knowledge. But it's so weird when people who are frankly paid more than me, basically aren't able to do things that I think of as just being basic computer knowledge. I'll just put it that way. It's just it really makes you think, frankly. So that's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. So think about that next time you're writing something. And just read the manual for all Unix core utilities. Just do that before you even start writing stuff. And I will see you guys next time.